Welcome back to another episode of the Lightdrop. Just two friends, two guys wearing hats, talking creativity and beyond. My name is Jamil.
And my name is Jeff.
Today we have some food for thought for you guys. Something that we were thinking about literally like 5 minutes ago to kind of spark a conversation, get things going, and then just see where it goes from there. And the question was, Jeff, do you have the question?
Yeah, the question is, would you augment yourself to increase your technical abilities but reduce your creativity? So this question was basically sparked from a friend of mine that we might even know both at SCAD. His name is Trevor. And he had a project where he basically had this thesis where he was like, if we want to get into space, we're going to have to reduce some of those organic limitations that we have. So, you can't travel, like 50 years in space without losing some of your muscle density. So his idea was that we're going to have to replace some of our arms, right? Or legs or eyes or something. So that's where this question came from. Would you reduce your creativity to increase your technical abilities? Jamil, you got an answer for us?
Well, first, I guess breaking it down into two parts is the actual like act of replacing a limb.
Yeah.
Like is that something that I would want to do in general?
Yeah.
Because that sci-fi has been in our culture for a while now with cyberpunk
Yeah.
and other science fiction movies and novels and everything. So the seed has already been planted with wearables and with Apple Watches and ear pods that are always in people's ears. You got the new headset from Apple, and of course the Oculus and all those other AR, VR headsets
Yeah.
and stuff. So slowly it's gonna get there, right? I don't think that if Apple came out with a new arm product tomorrow, that a lot of people would jump on it. But
Exactly.
that's if it's gonna get there, then obviously that's like the seed needs to get planted with these wearables and everything. And me personally, I don't wear a lot of the wearables. I don't have AirPods. I don't have the smartwatches,
Yeah.
the VR headsets or anything like that. So I don't feel like I'd be inclined to jump on it from the standpoint of just augmenting myself, but with the allure of potentially becoming more technically capable, I still don't think I would do it because this year, if anything, has proven that the AI wave is augmenting us already, with our ability to make things fast and come up with ideas and generate prompts and everything, text to images and stuff like that. So I don't think that physical skill sets are even going to be that much of a thing in the future.
Hmm.
Like it's not even really going to matter if you can paint well,
Yeah.
right? So
That's true.
so it's like the creativity aspect down the line, I think is just going to exponentially get more and more valuable to have that muscle, that creative muscle. So I don't think I would do anything to take away from my creativity, you know?
Yeah. I was I was thinking about that. I mean, even this question makes me think of. It reminds me of the Neuralink that just got uh,
Hmm.
Elon Musk released a statement about 2 days ago. It said that it's ready for
Yeah,
human
what's the
trials.
oh, okay, yeah, I was gonna ask what's the update on that?
Yeah,
Interesting.
apparently they were having some issues with monkeys, but apparently like the monkeys are fine. So they're about to start trying it on people. But I think of things like that, and I don't know. Have you heard about Neuralink before?
Yeah, I've heard about it. It's been in and out of the news for the past several years.
Yeah,
And you know, Elon's always cooking up something.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's been one of those things where you just like, I don't know, but Elon seems confident about it. So
Yeah,
eventually it's gonna.
it's science based, right? And it's something that hasn't been. It has actually been going for a while, since like the late '90s. These brain implants, and uh, I could see things like that being definitely used in the future to just improve. I mean, we don't know every single use case for these, because we just think it's like, for creative measures, but there's other things that could be improved. But on that end, I would definitely cut something off or put something on, or
Really?
um, something. I mean, I'm not saying like, I probably wouldn't be able to do it, because if they're just starting human trials, and um, they're probably going to focus on like sicknesses first, people who have
Yeah.
Parkinson's, eye problems, foot problems, whatever it is. But I think eventually, when I'm at a certain age, I might be able to do it for fun. I probably won't be using it for anything creative, just to be able to experience the world a little bit differently. But 100%, if I could do something like that, I would, just so that I could
Interesting.
like say to myself, I did
I
that.
can see. It's. I'm actually reading a science fiction book right now. It's I always forget the author. His last name is Paolini. He's very popular. Um,
Hmm.
Christopher Paolini. I want to say. I hope I didn't get that wrong. But he wrote the Aragon novels.
Oh,
You
nice.
familiar
Okay.
with those?
Yeah, I am.
Those fantasy novels,
And yeah.
um, and then the last several years he wrote some science fiction, and it's interesting how, I mean, like I said before, this this sci-fi of augmentations and implants and all that has been in pop culture the pop culture psyche for a while now.
Hmm.
So it's interesting the way he did it in his book, where the technology is similar. It's just referred to as implants. He doesn't explain at any point what they are, like like technologically, or how they work. He just references them, like so and so pulled up her implants and was
Hmm.
able to like check the weather or whatever, check the barometric pressure, or blah blah blah. But it's like interesting because I still know exactly what he means. Like
Hmm.
he didn't have to explain it at all, but it's the gist is that you get these augmentations when you're born, that essentially just allow you to have like our smartphones accessible at any time through like our eyes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the image, of course, the imagery that he uses is when that happens, when somebody's checking their implants, their eyes kind of glaze over a little bit.
Hmm.
You know, you've seen
Hmm.
that before in
Yeah.
Black
Black Mirror.
Mirror
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So it's just interesting how these seeds are getting planted, and it's like this cyclical thing of, first it appears in sci-fi, and then you see it sort of in smartwatches and smart glasses and all this, and then you start thinking, oh, what's next? But you
Hmm.
already know that these big tech companies are very conscious of what's next
Exactly.
as they introduce these products and stuff. Neuralink is a great example of that too. So yeah, I think for the most part, there it is. I said it again. For the most part, it's the seeds of AI this year are like huge. How
Hmm.
exponentially fast it's been kind of ingrained in people's norm. Like the norm is just to go to Chat GPT and ask it
Hmm.
a question, or ask it to write you something, or do this, do that. So these augmentations are going to have that. They're going to have that technology in there to the point where eventually, regardless of whether it's a extra leg, or eyes that can help you see colors better or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
They're gonna start
it's yeah,
being
the
introduced to those
technology is
small
in its
places.
infancy, and we're using it already.
Yeah,
We have
exactly.
been. And more important than ever, you got to remember that it's the user still, it's still us that's using it. So I think that both scenarios will happen regardless or dependent on your perspective, right? The scenario of AI taking over and humans kind of losing what it is that makes them human versus AI being this incredible tool that enhances our ability to be human, right? I
Mhm.
think that both scenarios will happen. They're like will exist, and it's just dependent on your outlook, your perspective, and the way that you approach this technology, especially as it pertains to creativity and offering thought and emotion and giving back to people.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I think of hearing when you people talk about AI, sometimes it's it comes off of this very negative thing, right? It's going to disrupt things too quickly, but this is something that happens all the time. I mean, there's always new technology that comes in, and the people who use it and adapt are better for it. But the constant is that things like this can't be changed. I mean, it's going to continuously happen. So important thing is to just adapt as you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been seeing a lot of sentiments on LinkedIn about AI, especially in my industry. The visual effects industry is one that could definitely have a lot of jobs be replaced
Yeah.
in the foreseeable, not, I don't want to say foreseeable future, but right. I mean, the seed is planted in everybody's head. They're like, what if? What
Yeah.
if all my technical abilities up to this point are just going to become outdated like
Hmm.
in the blink of an eye because somebody can just type in the text of what they want and then go in and animate it a certain way, and AI just kind of handles it for you. And I've just been very interested in seeing how like the same scenario is viewed as like fearful from the people who will be impacted as far as their livelihoods go, but just from the standpoint of a creative is awesome because it's like I can think of something and I don't need to feel like I'm limited by my resources and my technical prowess to be able to bring it to life, you
Hmm.
know? Like in our last episode um we talked about that collaborative kind of creative exchange that happens with you just being the vessel that brings forth a particular idea,
Hmm.
um, with your painting skills or writing skills or what have you. But with AI, it's gonna close that gap to, if anything, just allow more people to feel empowered to explore their creativity with these tools.
Exactly. And that kind of makes me think of, our next question, which is, what would you do if you knew AI would take your job? And I think with this question, the first thing that I think of is adapting. When you're obviously on a day to day basis, we're trying to make an income, and we're not animals per se. We're not chasing down animals to eat, but the same way we're out there and we're fighting for our livelihood. And
We
the only
out here
thing, exactly, I mean, you're chasing food out here. We're hungry,
trying to eat.
trying to eat. Exactly. So you change. If you got to put on a brand new pair of shoes to run faster, you do it. So with that question, when it pertains to AI and what you would do in the job market, the first thing I think of is adapting. I would probably just work on creating a better me somehow, creating something that would reduce a frustration. And with AI, the amazing thing is that you have somebody that you can talk to all the time, who you can tell whatever it is that you want to do. And if you can learn how to speak with them, in the next few years, that's a valuable skill, being able to replicate that, right?
with them.
Yes.
with with the AI.
Exactly.
Oh man, it's begun.
You said what?
I said it's begun to just like the way you just slid that in there, like I could see eventually robots and and like physical assistants in front of you,
Yeah.
to amplify and help you with things. And yeah, man,
And
it's crazy.
just think of, I mean, when when you use, you know, your voice commands on your phone, you're conversating with AI. So being able to actually now use that for your own benefit instead of, this huge company called Google just taking what you're already using to make things a little bit differently, you can do that for your personal self. I mean, if you have a personal assistant who's keeping track of things that you want to do or how good you are at something, that people, we don't talk too much about that. I mean, being able to transfer your energy into something that can work for you just as hard as you work. I mean, actually, even harder, honestly, in multiples is a valuable thing. So that would be the first thing I would do. I would learn how to speak to computers. I think I kind of get logic a little bit, but I could definitely see that being a skill in the next 10 years or something. What would you specifically do in your industry to adapt if you knew AI was coming, Jamil?
Well, specifically within my industry, my creative industry, it's almost like there's two sides to it. Like I said, there's the side of your livelihood. I think that's where the bulk of the fear comes from when they look at these new technologies, is this disruption in their comfort zone, right? Of their knowing that they'll always have someone who's looking for their skills that they spend decades, in some cases honing and sharpening. And it's easy to get lost in thinking that that's all that you are, like
Hmm.
when you're in an industry for so long, myself, the visual effects industry, you call yourself a visual effects artist, a lighting artist, a compositor, an animator, or whatever. You attach that title to yourself. And as soon as you do that, you start to essentially limit yourself the longer and longer that you keep that title in your head.
Hmm.
When you go all the way back to the beginning, when you decided that you wanted to do what you're doing now, it was from this joy of bringing to life these images, these worlds, these stories, and colors and moods, and just the creativity and seeing people's responses to it, regardless of whether it's anime or animated movies or visual effects in live action films, and taking you to fantasy wonderlands and outer space and all of that
Hmm.
is what excited us all in the first place. So remembering that this technology is just going to make that easier, and you kind of start to reconcile with that and say, okay, what I'm doing as far as a job goes, as a livelihood goes, is utilizing my skills that I've learned over the years to bring forth these images to people. But the consumer, the audience, right, this next generation, especially those who are in high school now, middle school, high school, early college, is really who's going to dictate the where this goes, because if they want to see things that are created with AI, then that's what the demand is going to be. So it's kind of irrelevant whether or not I'm worried about where I fit in that. It's more so like seeing the writing on the wall and saying, okay, this is where this is going. How can I kind of find that trend and still inject what it is that excites me about my work and my
Mhm.
creativity to fit, to be a part of that, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I think the longer, and I'm not going to speak, I certainly don't want to speak for anyone because I have 8 years experience, but I'm still, and I call myself a senior artist, but I'm still a baby relative to a lot of the seniors in my industry. But I just imagine it's just, it gets harder the longer you've been in an industry, the harder it is to kind of be willing to change that, to see that change happen. But when I think about, like I said, people in high school, people in early college who are just getting into the same field that I'm in, they're likely viewing it completely different way. Like
Hmm.
they're seeing this as what's coming up. How can I learn this? How can I, they're not they're not beholden to the ways that have been, the technology that has been. So that's kind of the way I see it, is like there's our livelihoods, and that's what's the most scary, because it's like, oh my goodness, i'm gonna I'm gonna disrupt my comfort level that I've had in this job, my job security.
Yeah,
But then there's also just the purely creative artist side of things, enjoying seeing these things come to life. And it's cool. It's like, where can this go? I have an idea, and I can just see it in 40 minutes. I don't have to render it for 30 hours or get someone else to model it for me and this, that, and the third. So yeah, I would just I would just speak to and observe, to answer your question in the most long-winded way. What I would do is speak to and observe the next generation of talent, the people who are going to be the future of this industry.
yeah.
What are they interested in? I,
What are
I'm
they
I'm I
doing?
want to be interested in what they're interested in, and to learn about that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it because in short, what I get from that is that calm down, y'all. You're not that important. You're not gonna you're not gonna you're not gonna be the one who's gonna be shaping everything. I mean, when you actually sit back and think about it, change is happening and you might not be a part of it, but it's important to take notice and adapt as you go because like I said, you're not the one. you know.
Yeah, and the pie
Gotta
isn't going to shrink. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's the other thing too, is there's this fear that this chunk is going to get taken off. Your industry is just going to get wiped off the face of the
Mhm.
planet. It's everything is always growing, so everyone's going to have an opportunity to fit in somewhere
Yeah.
else. It's not like this piece of the pie is getting cut off, and we're just left high and dry, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's also something that I think about a lot is we haven't even reached like peak innovation with some of these AI products because a good majority of the world doesn't even have internet yet or reliable internet where they can interact with these massive online chat tools. So once that happens, that's when things are going to rev up a bit more. So we still have so much to learn. So it's important to be able to be open to receiving that because if you're not, you're going to ignore it and you're going to think that I have to be a certain way. I'm going against this this wave and I'm going to fight my way through it instead of moving along with it. you know um, it's just important to think about that. It's just there's so much more coming and I think
Yeah,
we're both excited about it.
yeah, that's true. From the middle schooler who can now make a whole short film on his own,
You talking about that
to,
blender?
no, I'm talking about like Runway, and
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
just, I mean, it's still not, you're not gonna tell the greatest story. From what I've seen, it's the taking an image and animating it through AI still gives you just a relatively slow kind of transition, like the
Hmm.
use case I've seen a lot is with like leaves blowing or like fire or smoke, and if it's a person, then they're just kind of like walking away slowly, and
Hmm.
but this has been 9 months, 10 months, I don't know. It's in another 10 months, it's just exponentially getting better and better.
Yeah.
And like you said, um we're we're viewing it from the standpoint of already having access to the technology that we have access to, the skills that we have, that we've learned um in schools and what have you, Photoshop and Adobe and all that over the years. But to your point, there's a lot of people who in this world who don't have access to that software or even the ability to learn that software, but still have these ideas. They
Hmm.
still have that creative muscle. So when these tools reach them, it's like, oh my god, all of a sudden I can cook food in 30 seconds, like the microwave. When before I
Yeah.
was you know
Come up with new ideas, all that
yeah,
different ways of doing things. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see. Uh, I've seen a couple of. I saw this conference, a Figma conference, and one of the presenters brought on this new idea that you could use AI with apps. So instead of your phone having a bunch of apps, your phone becomes sort of like a chat bot, and you ask it questions, or you're not looking for like a recipe app. You're looking for recipes, and your phone is just easier
yeah, your
tool that you
phone
put to
just
find those things.
has it. Your phone just knows it, right?
Just knows it, or you're like, I want to play a Mortal Kombat type of game. Make one for me and make them in this style. So it's just, I mean, that's just the type of stuff that excites me about the general public having access to a tool where they can start coming up with their ideas. I mean, you don't know
Yeah,
if a single mom somewhere is going to come up with the next $1 billion idea because they've realized a frustration that most people haven't even tapped into. So that it's just it's an exciting time for everyone as far as you know expressing themselves creatively and really showing what the human collective can do when we are given a tool such as AI or Chat GPT, whatever, to
yeah.
solve problems.
Have you noticed that in yourself, like ideas that you may have, you're more inclined to follow them at least a little bit further, you know? Like,
Yeah.
for example, um, I don't know a specific example, but I know that a lot of people have a lot of ideas, and usually, myself included, and 9 times out of 10, you're just like, oh, someone should do that. Wouldn't it be cool if someone made this or like did this? But I've been finding, like, with these AI tools that keep popping up, and I'll hear about a new one, or I'll see someone post something that they did with another one, and I'll have an idea. I'll be like, oh, like I could make a short story or a novel or whatever,
Hmm.
and I've just noticed that, like, I'm more inclined to be like, let me follow that and see, like, how could I do that, because the tools are kind of there now. It's like I
Yeah.
don't feel like I need to. Well, I don't know how to do this part of the process, so that in and of itself just keeps me from even getting started.
Yeah.
You know, whereas now it's like I want to write a play. I don't know how to compose, or I don't know how to, or I know how to compose. I don't know how to write a story. Now it's like, okay, well, I'll just compose and have Chat GPT help me with the story. And
Mm.
it's like, have you noticed that? Have you noticed just like
Yeah.
ideas that you've had? You're just like, oh, maybe I can.
I think that it's the barrier of entry, that resistance isn't there as much as it used to be. I mean, being able to obviously in my career as a graphic designer, I can make ideas come to light just because I have the tools to be able to do it. So now, expanding it onto being able to write a little bit better. Now, my story that I could previously only do visually, right, has been amplified because now I can bring in a much richer story, which I wasn't able to do before, which is great because I think that means that the the better I become in one way, I could still improve my abilities in the other way just because now I have this tool that can almost give me advice. I think of this AI tool as just a friend, somebody you can refer to, you can ask questions, um, can give you suggestions, and make the things that you're already thinking a little bit better. So I absolutely see it as as a valuable tool that has helped me come up with ideas better, as you said.
We're the ones adding to it too. Like all of the things that it knows, right?
Hmm.
It's or that it's referencing or that it's
The title of a movie, It Knows. Just give
exactly
up.
all of those things. We're like you said, we're injecting into it. Like people's ideas are flowing. There's a lot of power in following an idea without any resistance at all. Like when you have a lot of people doing that, that's when you see this growth, this exponential growth, essentially like we've been seeing, which is likely why that's happening. If you let's say for example, let's say for example, it's Sunday afternoon, right? You have no chores, you're just chilling at the house, no place you need to be, no agenda. The rest of the evening is just yours, right? And you say you've been there before, right? Like you
I've
feel
been there.
that you
Yeah.
feel that how that feels. It's a nice feeling,
Yeah, I
Monday,
love it.
it's Sunday, and
Yeah.
Monday's tomorrow, but you don't really have a lot to do. Like so that Sunday, rest of the Sunday evening, it's like that feeling.
Hmm.
And then you say you say I want some ice cream, right? Right? And from there it's like immediately that it's yours. You don't have it right now in your house, but you know for a fact that it's yours if you want it. And so with like no resistance, it's just like, okay, I'll go to the store and I'll get some, I'll bring it back. And then 20 minutes later, you're sitting there with ice cream. Like when you kind of think about it, that's really powerful for you to just have an idea, say that I want to do something, I want something, and then 20 minutes later, you have it in your
Hmm.
hands, and because you just followed it, you know, as
Yep.
opposed to what most of us do is I want some ice cream. Uh, it's like 20 minutes away. Do I really want to go? Do I like? It's starting to get late, kind of, and it's just back and forth, and you end up maybe not going, or maybe you went, but you're like not super excited because you're wondering if they'll even have it. It kind of thing. It's like this knowing of I can have that. It's mine. All I need to do is go get it. And in a certain way, I feel like that's pertaining to some things artistic. That's kind of what we're seeing more and more of with these AI tools. Is people are saying like, I want to build an app. I have
Hmm.
an idea for this. I have an idea for that. And it's like, you know what? I can do it. Like I've seen other people do it who don't have experience. I can do that. I can do
Yep.
this. I can do whatever. So um, that's been a huge thing that I've been kind of seeing in content creators, and we're all on YouTube browsing things and seeing the next wave of ideas pop up, how you can do XYZ with AI. And it's been it's been this huge shift in such a short amount of time.
It has, and all these things that are being released. Uh, the way that I'm excited about, like you said, the way that people who wouldn't normally touch these things are going to expand on them because they're the people who know these deep frustrations, and previously they've never been empowered to do it, but the fact that they'll have them is going to be amazing. For me personally, I can think of, just being able to reduce the labor, technical labors that, we have when we're creating things, whether it's like renaming files, automatic batching or exporting,
Dude, you know how
rendering.
many times I'd be in Maya
Yeah.
and I'd just be like, dude, why isn't there just a button for me to just clean this up or do XYZ? And it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like some people have a pride in knowing how to do that the hard way,
Yeah.
you know, where it's like, I got these technical abilities. I can sift through this for a couple hours and get to the bottom of it. I've always very much been someone who's just like, give me something easy to do it with so I can remove that technical aspect of it.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with Substance Painter?
I've heard of it before, but I've never used it or looked into the interface.
Yeah, Adobe bought it maybe a couple years ago, so it's in like the Adobe suite
Oh, that's
now.
the material thing. Like you can drop in
Hmm.
materials and
Yeah, they have Substance
create scenes.
Designer, which is like you can create materials for 3D assets. Substance
Okay.
Painter is where you can create texture maps,
Mm.
but it's very intuitive to where you're actually painting onto your model or whatever.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh.
Yeah. So when I left film to try and get into advertising, I knew that as a lighting artist, texturing was something that I needed to know how to do because lighting artists working in advertising wear more hats. So texturing was one of the things that if it needed to be done, it was the lighter's job to do it, probably. So I didn't learn that in school. I didn't learn UVs or texture maps or any of that. And I think at the time the primary tool to use that was Mari, the Foundries tool, like Nuke. You know Nuke.
Nuke, yeah, I've heard of Nuke.
It was Mari was like the primary texturing application interface, and I just didn't like it. Like when I was learning it, trying to teach it to myself, I was like, this is painful. Like I do not enjoy this. I'm doing this because it's a necessity and I'm going to learn how to do it.
Hmm.
But this isn't an intuitive, artistic kind of thing. It feels like I'm working with like I'm just working with this interface, but it's not intuitive. And it was right around then that Substance Painter kind of came onto the scene and started to emerge as the new standard. And I used it and I was like, it's night and day. Like I actually kind of enjoy texturing now
Mm.
because all this other stuff got removed, all these other things I needed to know about what was going on under the surface, like technologically. I could just paint now and press a button and it'll kick out everything I need and that's that. So I just imagine the average person who's not even in a creative industry now is like, oh, I can create something. I don't have to worry about learning about techniques or this or that. It's just I can think it and I can build it, you know?
Yeah, free flowing thinking, super
Hmm.
valuable. I mean, that reminds me of, I've really been, like I said, I've talked about it before. I've been into spline a lot, and coming from uh, industrial design, you're working with like Fusion 360, working with Rhino 3D, and uh, applications like that are great for obviously product visualization and super technical stuff like CAD modeling and stuff. But that's not the reason why I love 3D. I just love being able to create three-dimensional objects, not super technical, just being able to sort of visualize them. It's fun for me. And being able to find a tool like Spline that reduced the 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 way that you create objects to a way that I understood, which was like from Illustrator, has been,
Learning curve.
yeah, the learning curve is, it's super low and you can do so much with it, and it just does just enough that I'm like, this is still, I'm having a lot of fun with this. So when things like that happen, when when we reduce the barrier of entry for ideas, something magical always happens. And I think that is the the basis of this episode is that the barrier of entries for certain things tended to be too high. We've seen this throughout history, and now it's a little bit lower, but that is it's getting to the sweet spot, which I'm looking forward to.
And not only that, but the simplicity of what people want to see, I feel, is getting maybe simplicity is not the right word. The breadth of what people want to see is shifting too. Like
Mm,
it was over, I would say, what, the last 4 years maybe, that the whole kind of shorts thing emerged, to where like 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds is like the sweet spot of content that you want to create.
hmm.
Long form content is considered anything longer than like 8 minutes,
Yeah,
you know, and movie stars aren't really a thing anymore.
yeah,
We certainly don't have
influencers.
any new ones. It's like the things that Hollywood is doing honestly are kind of antiquated and outdated, and you can tell that the the ones making the decisions or greenlighting things at that level don't even really know themselves, like, where the interest is, or where it's going. You think of people in high school and middle school who are growing. Could you imagine growing up with TikTok? Like,
we,
that's
I
like,
mean,
it's just there. Like, it was there when you got here, and
there
you know
was.
what
I
I
mean, I
mean?
can't imagine growing up with it, but definitely, I remember Vine. I was never into Vine, but
Oh yeah,
I remember Vine being a thing, but obviously it didn't hit the world like TikTok has. But
yeah,
now, I think the difference between Vine and TikTok is that TikTok has much more brand power and it shifts ideas. It's in politics and everything. So I can't imagine growing up with something like TikTok back then that
yeah.
has the weight that it has now. You know?
Exactly. And watching TikTok and seeing people who you like and follow on TikTok, like you think of a movie star that we followed when we were kids. It was like this astronomical gap of
True.
like, and people said, "Oh, you can do anything, you can get there if you practice." But it's like, you knew, like, I don't even know if I want to do that really. Like, it'd be nice, but like now it's I'm just thinking of, like I said, it's been around for a while with TikTok and influencers being the the people that people follow, not movie stars and and all that. And it's just closer to than ever. And I'm just thinking about people growing up with that and actually like basing their whole frame of like content on
Mm,
that from the get-go. It's like their ideas on what will hit and what will resonate are like, I imagine, just completely like, I don't know, like completely different than probably mine, right, over the years.
yeah.
And so and so when we think about what people are going to be creating with these AI technologies and anything that enhances, or lowers the barrier of entry, it's like more and more short form stuff, and just like almost like grassroots kind of feeling. Like it's really not even that complex.
Yeah.
The videos that get millions and millions of views on TikTok, it's they don't have huge budgets.
Mm-mm.
Right? They don't, these people aren't going to the theaters anymore to see these like blockbuster movies that have, you know, like spent millions, but like when you actually look at how many people viewed it, it's probably not as many people who have viewed Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
Mr. Beast videos, or like the Super Bowl. Like, these short form content things are getting so many views, and that's where the interest is. And a lot of times it doesn't need to be complicated. So I think that there's this, I think that rounding out this thought, what I'm getting at is there's this with our generation and the generation before us, there's almost this like not snobbiness, but like this like I was saying before, this pride of like I make the best, like I'm an expert at this. I make the best looking, you know, 3D art or
Mm,
graphics or visual effects and pulling that off. But when you kind of look down the line, people aren't really concerned with that so much anymore. It's more so just about what can hold your attention, what's interesting, what resonates with you. So when you kind of think that way as you create and as you create for others, it kind of frees you up to just kind of be like more willing to try something new.
yeah, because I mean, when you're prototyping those ideas, you don't have to sit down and think about every like little dot or you know every pixel just to get your
Hmm.
idea across. It's a powerful thing. I really wish, honestly, thinking about it, I wish we had this in school because I think we would have if there was. I mean, hopefully, there's no like ethical reasons why you can't submit an idea right now in school using AI. But if I would have been able to do that, I would have been able to get through, you know, get some ideas out where I wouldn't have to sketch thousands and thousands of sketches.
Yeah, that's the other thing too we haven't really touched on, and it's actually pretty big to get your thoughts on is the legal and ethical kind of ramifications of the ownership of of what it is that you're making with AI, right?
Mm,
Because you have like you know, I mean, it's not exactly like outlined, defined as exactly what's going on, but everybody kind of knows what's going on where someone created something using solely AI, and then they come behind and say, um, you know, I built this from scratch, or like,
mm,
or even worse is they'll say that they didn't use AI. You know, they'll mark it off as like, oh
right.
yeah, I drew this, or I you know matte painted this or whatever. So there's that aspect of it too, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on.
Yeah, I mean, I think here we go. I'm saying it again.
We say I think way too much
We
on
do
this show.
absolutely way too much. What do I think?
We do be
Well,
thinking though.
we do be thinking. We got our thinking hats on
Yeah,
today.
we both got our thinking hats on today, and we be thinking.
Yes. Well, with the ethicalness of someone taking an idea that a computer, you know, AI system built and then calling that their own is obviously not true. And it can't, I mean, it shouldn't be a thing. When you solely rely on the computer to create an idea and then, you know, steal it as your own, that's just something that you don't do. People do that with before AI even existed. People will call other people's work their own, and I can't speak too favorably about those artists and designers because that's something that they've probably been doing for a while. So it's gonna keep happening. It's not right, but it'll keep happening. I think when you're able to spot original ideas a little bit better, you can pick out that, and just rule it out. If you're working with a designer or artist or somebody and you can see that it's fake, you just rule them out. And that's the best thing you can do. But
Yeah, I think
it's not right.
people's eye has definitely been kind of been trained over the course of the last year or two to kind of
Mm-hmm.
spot like, oh, that's is that AI? Like, is that like you know? I think people's sensitivity and perception for that will also increase too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to your point too. Like even before AI emerged, you had plenty of people who because they paid for it, you know, and maybe it was in the contract, right? but because they paid for it, and like the artists, like they made it in the dark, in the shadows, and the person who sanctioned it or paid for it is the one that's like, yeah, this is mine. This is, I did this kind of thing. Um, when it was more so like a kind, I think the gray area comes in where you almost are suggesting something
Hmm.
to AI. Like in Midjourney, the way it is now, it's like it's never 100% what you wanted. It's like, and how could it be? Like if you just have an idea in your head and you kind of do the text to image, it's going to give you its interpretation of what you're saying, and then usually you kind of look at it and you're like, that's cool, and then like
Close.
maybe I'll kind of go from there. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
close.
close enough.
But isn't that what has been happening for years with with clients and stuff? It's like they have something in their head, they tell you it, and then you kind of come back with something, and they're like, oh, that's it's kind of close, or that looks, that's not even what I was thinking, but that still looks pretty hot. Like,
Yeah,
you
there's
know,
there's no difference. That's a very good point. I didn't think about it like that. That even with what you intend to create for them, it's never 100% correct. There's definitely skills and things that you can do to make sure that you're, meeting your client's expectations. But at the end of the day, you are styling it in through your own perspective, and it's not going to be 100% right. But with AI, you there's definitely a lot more risk because you are creating something based on something else's perception. So you can't be stylized in a way too clearly with that. So I think that's a good point because if people come to you as the designer, you have a specific way of doing it, right? You create art a specific way. You light things sorry, I can't even say my words today. Specific way. You are being paid for your perspective, and to rely on artificial intelligence to get you 100% of the way there is beyond ethical. It's just you're not going to get the best results, but you can use it to get you 35% of the way there, and then you take it beyond
even further, 40,
even further.
50,
Exactly.
60. Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, it's almost intuitive too. Like if
Mm,
you're really trying to create something that's yours and you go to Midjourney to create an image around it, and it's like, this isn't exactly what I thought, but this is kind of close, and it's like, what can I do with it from here, like so that it's still mine? Like early on, you would have an idea for a person, or you'd put something in it, and it would have like six fingers, or like a bajillion teeth or something like that, and there was just this uncanniness to it where you knew it wasn't human,
yeah. Hmm.
and I think that we're always going to have that like inkling to be able to tell, like especially now, and everyone's on high alert for it. It's like, how'd you make this? Like you'll come back to somebody with a design, and it's like, how'd you make this?
Yeah, it's too fast.
Like, yeah, like that question is coming up more and more. How'd you make this? Did you use AI? Did you write this? Like, you
Mm.
know, people are saying like, yeah, written by so and so without AI. Like, you have to actually say
I
like,
did this without AI.
yeah, exactly. I did this without AI, and everyone's like, oh, this is good. Like,
Yeah. Wow.
that's the other thing. It's like, just it's hard to put into words how we're going to be able to quantify, like, oh, that's he's such an amazing artist, or she's such an amazing writer, like when it becomes commonplace to leverage AI and stuff. But I think that ultimately everyone will still be able to tell at some level, like, this person this is this person's work.
Mhm.
Like, this the emotion that's coming through with this, the ideas, the story, was came from this person's experiences and this person's, skills and mind. It's not like they just kind of relied completely on something else. And that's like, like we were saying, that's how it's always been, even before AI. Is like is this person's work, or isn't it? Like you could tell, someone can always tell.
Yeah, and that makes me think of when artists were specialists, and you were a painter, you had a specific style, and you were still following the same common anatomy. I mean, for the most part, some people were a little bit better than others, but they followed the same anatomy, and then they would draw different things, and it wouldn't be the same because they had different styles. So that is the root of it all. I mean, with art, design, creativity, whatever you want to call it, there's fundamentals, there's the foundation, and then there's the idea that the person creates that goes beyond, which is based on who they are. So that
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I mean, just ask yourself who you are as you're making things, and
Mm-hmm.
there isn't a tool out there that you can't master and manipulate and make your own.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's no tool out there that can create for you,
No,
right? I
artists
think
create
that,
better.
yeah, exactly. Artists
Hashtag.
artists will always create better. And if you think that people who are coming up with these ideas, like if something resonates with you in a way that's powerful, like whether it be visual or written or whatever, there's you can't detract from that emotion, right? It's not that's not something that just comes from nowhere. So these AI tools um are only going to get better and better and better and better, but humans are always going to get more and more and more perceptive, towards how they feel when they see something.
Hmm.
More than ever, that's what you have to judge something on, is how do I feel when I look at this, or when I read this. And it's that's really all it boils down to. That's really all that matters.
Exactly. But yeah, should we close out the pod?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to close this one out. A nice little AI discussion. Where do we start? We started with augmentations.
Cutting off your
We went
limbs.
Yeah.
And then
Everything
what are your
always circles
jobs?
back to that.
Cutting off what?
Everything always circles back to emotion and creativity. And you know as we have more and more of these discussions, it's very simple, right? Everything kind of applies as a creative professional, as an artist. Even if you're not a professional creative, you're someone who likes to create, and emotion is what it takes to do it. Creative energy, all these things can't be they got to be valued, and they can't be replicated by anything.
Exactly. You are the centerpiece. You are the main character in your story. Don't be afraid of these tools. Embrace them because they'll be there tomorrow. They'll be there in 300 years or whatever. The best thing you can do is receive them and change as you need to. But yeah,
100%. I
100%.
agree.
Out. Bet.